When a canceled meeting sent me home 2 hours early, I never expected to find my wife in bed with another man. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I made a call to his wife. What followed wasn't chaos. It was precision. Cold, calculated, and completely legal. And it destroyed two people who thought they could get away with betrayal. I wasn't supposed to be home. A meeting got canceled last minute, so I left the office 2 hours early. I didn't think much of it, just figured I'd beat the traffic, maybe surprise Jess with takeout from that Thai place she liked. I parked the car, walked in, and set my keys on the counter. No dramatic entrance. No suspicions. Just an ordinary Thursday. But the house was wrong. Too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that presses against your ears and makes the back of your neck tense up. I moved down the hallway, my steps soft on the hardwood. Then I heard it. Faint at first, low voices, breathy laughter. The rhythmic squeak of a bed frame under motion that had nothing to do with sleep. My stomach clenched, but I didn't stop. I didn't call out her name. I didn't need to. I already knew. I pushed open the bedroom door. There they were. My wife and a man I'd never seen before. She was tangled in the sheets. He was halfway undressed, one hand gripping the headboard, the other sliding down her thigh. He looked up at me, confused for a second, like he couldn't quite compute what was happening. I didn't give him time. I grabbed a fistful of his hair and yanked him off the bed. He hit the floor hard, tried to scramble up, fists swinging wild. I ducked, pivoted, and drove my fist into his jaw. He went limp. Jessica screamed, pulled the sheets around herself, like modesty could fix what I just witnessed. I didn't even look at her. I reached down, took his phone out of his jeans, and unlocked it with his thumb. Contacts. Favorites. There it was, Mel, wife. I hit call. She answered on the third ring. Hey babe, did you? This isn't your husband, I said. This is the man you married, but not the man you thought you married. That man is unconscious in my bedroom, pants off, because I just caught him with my wife. Silence. Then I added, you might want to come get your trash. He's on the floor where he belongs. I hung up. Only then did I look at Jess. She was shaking, eyes wide, mouth open like she wanted to say something. I turned and walked out. Downstairs, I made coffee. Not because I needed the caffeine, because I needed to control something. The silence. The process. My own hands, still shaking from adrenaline. 10 minutes passed. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find a woman in her 30s, well-dressed, composed. But when her eyes met mine, I saw it. The realization. The dread. You're the one who called? She asked. I nodded. You must be Melissa. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. Where is he? I tilted my head toward the stairs. She moved fast. I followed slowly. Half of me wanted to stop her. The other half needed her to see it. Needed someone else to confirm that this wasn't just a nightmare I could wake up from. When we reached the bedroom, Kyle was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding a bag of frozen peas to his jaw. Jess stood by the dresser, fully dressed now, but visibly rattled. Melissa didn't say anything at first. She just stared at Kyle, then at Jess, then back at Kyle, and she laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind that comes out when every lie suddenly makes perfect sense. I sold my car last month, she said, still looking at him, to help you cover rent, while you were in this house. He said nothing. Jess tried. Melissa, I didn't know. You didn't know he was married? Melissa cut in. You didn't know his wife works 60-hour weeks to keep them afloat, while he plays entrepreneur in someone else's bed? Jess's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Melissa turned to me. Thanks for the call. The truth deserved an audience. Then, turning back to Kyle, she said, I'll send the divorce papers next week. You can sign them when your jaw works again. She left without another word. Jess turned to me slowly. I didn't know he was married, she whispered. I swear. I looked her dead in the eye. I don't care if he was married or the Pope. You brought him into our home, into our bed. It was a mistake, she said quickly. I wasn't thinking. No, I said. A mistake is leaving the stove on. This was a decision. She blinked back tears. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to hit you. I'm not even throwing your stuff out the window. Pause. But you're going to wish I had. She didn't understand at first. She would. And this was only the beginning. 3 hours after Melissa walked out of my house, I walked into my lawyer's office. The receptionist asked if I had an appointment. I didn't. I said it was urgent. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from a man who'd been handling high-conflict divorces for 2 decades. I handed him a folder security cam stills showing Kyle entering my home, screenshots of Jess's texts from her iCloud backup, timestamps, and now, Melissa's first-hand witness account. He flipped through it silently, then looked up. This is as clean-cut as they come. You want to go nuclear? No alimony. No split. No delays. I said. She walks away with whatever she can carry. I want the house and full financial control. He gave a low whistle. She'll fight it. I leaned back. Then she'll lose. Back at the house, Jess was sitting on the couch. She didn't ask where I'd been. Maybe she knew. Maybe she just didn't want the answer. The silence stretched until it felt like its own presence. Then finally she spoke. Are you really going through with it? I nodded. You brought him into our bed, Jess. I wasn't thinking straight, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You weren't thinking? I cut in. You sent him nudes from the bathroom while I was in the next room. You told him you loved how he made you feel. You called him your escape. She flinched. That's not someone who wasn't thinking, I continued. That's someone who got bored and didn't have the guts to say so. I thought we were in a rut, she whispered. No, I said. You were in a rut. I was building a life. Then I pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, divorce papers, distribution of assets, copies of evidence. She looked up, eyes already red. You filed today? I didn't break eye contact. Before the ice pack melted on his jaw. But it wasn't just about the paperwork. Jess was about to learn what it meant to choose chaos and expect comfort in return. The car? In my name. I had already reported it as transferred. She had 48 hours to return it or it'd be flagged for repossession. The bank accounts? I'd pulled my funds the minute I left the lawyer's office. The credit cards? Cancelled. Her gym membership, online subscriptions, phone plan, all connected to accounts I owned. Gone. I gave her 1 week to find a new place to stay. No screaming. No scenes. Just facts. You chose him, I told her. You don't get to live off me anymore. She looked stunned, like the reality had just cracked through the surface. Then came the tears. Then the apologies. The bargaining. The guilt plays. You're really leaving me with nothing? I didn't blink. No, you did that. I'm just handing you the invoice. For 2 days, she sat frozen, quiet, hollow, and still trying to understand the depth of what had happened. Then the pivot. The third morning, she approached me, soft-spoken, as if the tone would change the truth. I've been reading about counseling, she said. Maybe we don't rush this. Maybe we work through it. I let her speak. I let her hope, because letting her climb a ladder made the fall that much clearer. You're not coming back from this, Jess, I said. You invited a stranger into our home, into our bed, and didn't even lock the door. She swallowed hard. There's no version of this story where we work through it, I continued. There's only the ending, and you're lucky I'm giving you a clean one. For a moment, she stood still. Then her face changed. So that's it, she said. After everything we built, you're just throwing it all away? I tilted my head. You mean like you did with your clothes that night? She tried to answer. Nothing came out. The next day, she started calling people. Her mother, her sister, friends. I saw the texts later. I became the villain overnight. Emotionally cold. Snapped out of nowhere. Overreacted to a fling. Violent. Unstable. But I was already 1 step ahead. I had shared the full story with receipts with the right people. My boss to avoid workplace drama. A few mutual friends who had noticed the shift in Jess long before I ever spoke up. And, of course, Melissa. I didn't post anything online. Didn't trash her on social media. I didn't have to. I just made sure no one believed her version of events. I forwarded the proof, the messages, the photos, quietly. By the time she started calling my mom, crying for sympathy, my mother already knew everything. I raised a good man, she told Jess over the phone. And you walked all over him. Don't call here again. Jess went quiet after that until the next play. She walked into my lawyer's office the following week with her own attorney and a counterproposal. Half the house, half the savings, and compensation for emotional distress caused by public humiliation. My attorney didn't even flinch. He handed her a folder marked evidence package. Inside, 30 pages of messages, GPS records showing her at Kyle's apartment, photos of them in public, and a written statement from Melissa confirming the affair and timeline. Jess didn't speak. Her lawyer didn't either. If she contests, my attorney said, we'll go to court, and we'll be seeking damages for emotional fraud, reputational harm, and attorney fees. That night, she packed what she could carry. The next morning, she signed the papers. No alimony, no settlement, no payout, just silence. And that silence? That was the sound of her empire crumbling. 3 weeks after Jess signed the divorce papers, her name was erased from everything that mattered. Deed, utilities, insurance, accounts. Even the Netflix profile. I wasn't being petty. I was being thorough. I changed the locks the next day, not to be cruel, but because the chapter had ended, and I wasn't leaving any door open, literally or otherwise. The fallout didn't explode. It spread like slow poison. Quiet. Unstoppable. I didn't have to say a word. People started figuring it out on their own. She didn't post online, but people talk. Especially when something doesn't add up. Like why she lost her job. Her affair partner, Kyle, worked for a company that had a standing contract with mine. Once his wife went public, that contract was terminated. His company didn't ask questions, they just cut ties. Apparently, word got around. When your betrayal bleeds into your professional life, it stops being personal drama. It becomes liability. Jess didn't last another week at her marketing firm. She moved out of town shortly after, into a small rental far from the neighborhoods we used to frequent. The kind of place that didn't care about reputation, just rent. Mutual friends? They went silent. Not out of judgment. Out of discomfort. They saw the screenshots. Heard the real story. They weren't picking sides. They were stepping away. Even the ones who stayed neutral kept their distance. People like to avoid burning buildings, even if they once held fond memories there. I didn't date. Didn't go out looking to prove anything. I went to the gym, focused on work. I slept, really slept, for the first time in months without wondering if the person next to me was lying through her teeth. I started therapy. Not to cope with heartbreak, I was already past that. I went to understand why I didn't see it sooner. Why I let it go on. Why I let someone chip away at my instincts for so long. That was the hardest part. Not the betrayal. The blind spots. The way I rationalized every odd message. Every late night out. Every vague excuse. I'd been rewriting reality to fit a version of Jess that no longer existed. The therapist didn't offer absolution. Just clarity. You didn't fail, she said once. You trusted. She broke that. But you didn't break. Weeks turned to months. Then, one afternoon, a friend ran into Jess at a grocery store. He texted me afterward. She looked rough, still trying to spin it, still the victim. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care about her version anymore. But the fact that people stopped listening, that said more than any courtroom victory. A week later, she texted me. I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we talk? I didn't reply. I archived the message and moved on. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She missed the stability, the respect, the reputation that came with being part of something solid. But you don't get to crawl back after burning the bridge. Especially not when you set the fire, stood there watching, and then blamed the smoke. I don't know what happened with Kyle. Last I heard, He left her not long after the divorce was finalized. Word was he couldn't handle the drama. Didn't like being known as the guy who blew up 2 marriages. Turns out, the people who cheat with you usually don't stay loyal to you. There's a lesson there. Jess learned it too late. As for me, I kept living. I wasn't trying to win. I wasn't even trying to punish her anymore. The truth is, I'd already won the moment I stopped letting her take anything else from me. Time, peace, dignity. She thought revenge would look like public shaming or financial ruin. But the real revenge? It was silence. It was giving her nothing. Not a fight, not attention, not even a rebuttal. It was walking away completely whole while she stood in the ruins, trying to figure out how it all fell apart. I didn't destroy her life. She did. I just made sure she couldn't take mine down with it. Jess had underestimated one thing: how quickly consequences multiply when truth is on your side and you're not afraid to use it. She didn't scream, lash out, or show up at my door again. She didn't have to. The silence told me everything. Her pride had taken the hit, but what really broke her was the fact that no one believed her anymore. Not even the ones she thought would. She tried damage control, of course. I saw the attempts, mutual friends getting messages that felt more like PR spins than sincere reflections. We were both struggling. Things were complicated. He was distant. All lines meant to create doubt. But it was too late for that. She'd gone nuclear first, and I had responded with facts, not feelings. The worst part for her wasn't what she lost. It was that she couldn't control the narrative anymore. She thought if she spoke first, if she cried the loudest, she'd win sympathy. Instead, people started asking questions she couldn't answer. Why did Chris have the receipts? Why did her story change depending on who she was talking to? Why was the woman who just made a mistake also the one who kept lying about the timeline? She wasn't dealing with someone impulsive. I didn't explode. I executed. Every move was measured, intentional, and irreversible. She lost her support system one quiet conversation at a time. Her best friend, gone after reading the text. Her sister, stopped replying after I showed her the evidence Jess never mentioned. Even her mother, who initially tried to mediate, eventually pulled back. I never asked what was said in that final call, but I didn't need to, because from then on, Jess stopped trying to contact me directly. She switched to indirect channels, comments to mutuals, random social media posts dripping with veiled sadness. Sometimes you give your all and it's still not enough. People change. Wish I could undo the past. But she never owned what she'd done. And that's why no one came rushing to her defense. Meanwhile, my life kept moving. Work got better. The air was lighter in every room I walked into. No more second-guessing why Jess was texting late at night. No more pretending her coldness was just stress. I poured energy into what mattered: workouts, professional growth, therapy. And slowly, without meaning to, I built something she could never touch: peace. The gym became more than routine, it became discipline. Therapy wasn't just healing, it became clarity. And my job? I got a promotion 6 months later. Not because I was trying to prove something, but because I could finally focus without the emotional drain of a double life I hadn't signed up for. One night, months after the dust had settled, I ran into Melissa again. We weren't close, but we'd gone through similar wreckage. She gave me a nod, the kind that says more than words. "Heard Jess is trying to get back into marketing," she said. "Not going well." "I'm not surprised. People talk. They always do," I replied. "But now they're talking about her, not me." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes karma doesn't knock. It just walks in and gets comfortable." "Kyle?" He vanished. Melissa said he left town, tried to start over in a different city. Couldn't hold down a job. His resume was solid, but references were a mess. And once you're the guy whose name shows up in gossip tied to 2 collapsed marriages, companies hesitate. Apparently, he ghosted Jess shortly after the divorce was final. She never saw it coming. Thought he was the real thing. The irony wrote itself. She'd chosen someone temporary and discarded someone permanent. And now, she had nothing but memories, and none of them were the kind you frame. And I had no desire to date. Not yet. I wasn't afraid. I just didn't need it. I wasn't searching to fill a void. I'd filled it myself with stability, growth, and self-respect. Jess made one last attempt to bait sympathy. A long post on a private account, aimed at people who hadn't heard the full story. It was vague, passive-aggressive, laced with nostalgia. Some things are worth fighting for. I wish he had. But it wasn't about me. It was about her still trying to make herself the wounded party. People weren't buying it. Because by then, the story was out there. Not loud, not flashy, just consistent. And consistency wins. No one said anything to her face. They didn't have to. Invitations stopped coming. Messages dried up. Her circle shrank into an echo chamber of people too polite to tell her what they really thought. She could lie all she wanted. But the truth had already settled in. There was no version of the future where she could pretend this didn't happen. No one would forget. No one was willing to bet on someone who'd already proven they'd burn it all down just to feel something new. She wasn't rebuilding. She was surviving. And I was just getting started. It was 8 months after the divorce when I realized I hadn't thought about Jess in weeks. Not in anger. Not in sadness. Just not at all. That was the moment I knew I was truly free. She had become background noise to a life that had moved on without her. No more looking over my shoulder. No more waiting for the next betrayal to unfold. No more fixing something she had long since decided to break. Her final text came on a Thursday. I saw an old photo of us. I'm sorry. I still love you. I read it. Didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. No more forgiveness to offer. No pieces to pick up. That chapter wasn't just closed, it was sealed. She wasn't reaching out to reconcile. She was reaching out because everything she had gambled for had disappeared. Kyle left. Her job was gone. Friends faded. Reputation damaged beyond repair. Her safety net had holes she hadn't seen until it was too late. She thought my silence was cruelty. But it was mercy. Because if I had responded, if I had given her anything, anger, pity, even closure, it would have been a form of engagement. A sign that she still held space in my world. But she didn't. The irony? The real revenge wasn't anything I did to her. It was what she did to herself. She walked away from a stable life, from someone who loved her, for a thrill that lasted a few months. In return, she lost everything that mattered, and learned that rebuilding from ashes isn't as glamorous as she thought. I kept my promise. I didn't drag her name through the mud. I didn't retaliate publicly. I didn't post screenshots, didn't air out our life for strangers. But I did make sure people who needed to know the truth saw it. Not out of spite, out of defense. To protect myself, my career, my relationships. I did it cleanly, legally, quietly. She tried to play victim. It failed because she never understood the most important rule. If you want people to believe you, your story can't change every time you open your mouth. Mine didn't. My actions lined up with the evidence. My timeline never shifted. I didn't need to embellish or lie. And because of that, I didn't just win the legal battle. I won the social one, the emotional one, the future. After everything settled, I did something simple. I booked a solo trip. Nothing extravagant. Just a cabin in the Rockies for a weekend. No distractions. No noise. Just space. That weekend was the first time in years I felt completely present. No guilt. No second-guessing. No emotional cleanup. Just me. I journaled for the first time in a long while, not to vent, but to acknowledge what I'd survived. What I'd learned. Not about her, about myself. I'd learned to recognize manipulation dressed up as love. To trust patterns over apologies. To walk away when staying meant losing yourself. Most importantly, I learned that walking away doesn't make you weak. It means you value yourself enough not to stay where you're not respected. I came back from that trip clear-headed and grounded. And while I wasn't actively looking for anything new, I was no longer guarded. I knew what I wanted, what I would tolerate, and what I'd never allow again. A few months later, I met someone. It wasn't dramatic. No whirlwind. Just conversations that felt easy. Actions that aligned with words. A foundation that didn't require constant repair. I didn't rush it. I didn't compare. I just let it grow. Because healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about being so at peace with it that it no longer dictates your future. As for Jess, I don't know what became of her. I don't check. I don't ask. The people who used to bring me updates stopped long ago. Maybe she moved. Maybe she found someone else. Maybe she's still trying to fix a reputation she cracked with her own hands. Whatever the case, it's not my burden. She made her decisions. I made mine. And in the end, the cleanest revenge was never about destruction. It was about detachment. About walking away with my dignity intact. About living well, not for spite, not for show, but because that's what I was always capable of. She just couldn't see it. But I can. And I do. Every single day.